Welcome back to the Convo Couch. I am Fiorella, and I have Jonny on the ones and twos. And I have today a very special guest, a friend of the fam, Ron Placone. Ron, what
Hey
is up?
Fee, how's it going? Good to EC you.
EC me. Yeah, that's the way things are happening, man. Like, it
I
seems things
know.
have changed.
Well, did you have this? Like some of my friends and family scattered throughout the country, we have had those moments where, we're having hangouts on Zoom or whatever, and we realize we could just do this
Yeah.
all the time, even after this is over. And I'm not saying like it's going to be
Yeah.
the social norm. I mean, I like to go out and experience the world, obviously, but once a month, having a night in where you just Zoom with your buddies that you don't
Man.
get to see all the time because they live in other parts of the country.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cheap night in. You cook something, maybe get a little takeout, have some drinks at home. I could live with that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I think maybe like on a weekday when people have work or something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, weekday, I could be down with that. Or I don't know. I mean, the occasional Friday night where you just don't feel like hitting the town, or you feel like saving a few bucks, not taking a
True.
wallet hit. You're like, we're gonna play some games over Zoom with my buddies in Chicago, and then take a nice stroll at dusk.
True. I mean, I think everything's going to change. People keep talking about like going back to normal.
That's not going to happen.
I don't think that's ever going to happen. Like, this is the new normal.
This is a paradigm shift. We could have a discussion for this entire episode over whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because there are good and bad elements to it.
Yep.
The optimist in me is saying that the positive has a chance to outweigh the negative, and I hope it does.
Same. I hope it does. I've been really cynical lately. And we're going to get into why. Because
really, I feel like everything's fine.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Is there stuff out there to be bummed about? Oh,
yeah,
man.
Couple
I
things.
can't imagine.
Couple things, we have the best people leading us right now. Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer. They're
crop
just
of winners.
The best. They are. And it's been it's been one thing after the other since this year started. I remember last year we were all like, wow, 2019 sucked. I can't wait for 2020. That'll be our year. That'll be great. And then like 2020 happened and we're all like, holy shit. It's one thing after the other. And right now, Nancy Pelosi and Congress have come up with this really, really perfectly titled piece of legislation called the HEROES Act. And the HEROES Act is it's hilarious to me because it's so muddled with a lot of pieces in the legislation that are really anything but heroic. There are a lot of parts of the bill that hurt particular people, and I'm just gonna go over what it is. This is right now being debated by the House. It's a $3 trillion relief bill, and they are meeting right now to vote on it. And this is the Health and Economic Recovery Omnibus Emergency Solutions Act, or the HEROES Act. It includes $200 billion for hazard pay for frontline healthcare workers, $75 billion to expand COVID-19 testing, and allocates funding for state and local governments whose budgets have been walloped by shortfalls in tax revenue due to the coronavirus pandemic. It also includes up to $10,000 in student loan forgiveness. This is something I want to look deep into, and a new round of $1,200 stimulus payments, meaning just another one-time payment of $1,200. The American
all right,
people,
I got the next 10 weeks planned.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, $1,200. I mean, that's all. That's like all of your rent, I'm sure.
I bought a condo in Malibu with the first one. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this one. I might get a motorcycle.
2 condos in Florida. So Pelosi says that she's putting this out because the American people are worth it. And she told the AP that that this is going to be a struggle in the Senate, where Mitch McConnell likely is going to stop this.
Can we take a quick minute to point out how painfully condescending that was? You guys are worth it. You're worth. Wait a second. This is your job. This is your job. You're an elected official. It's your job that when a pandemic happens, you look out for the people, which is, by the way, the opposite of what our government has done. Our government, bill after bill, if you really want to sum it up nuts and bolts, they just said, hey, banks, here's a bunch of money. You'll give it to people, right? And the banks are like, maybe if we feel like it. And our government said, good enough. We're going to go on vacation. That's, if you really want nuts and bolts, super cliff notes, that's essentially what happened. So now she's, oh, you guys are worth it. Like, no. You're being called upon to do your job. The job where you enriched yourself over the course of 40 some years. That's why you don't understand why anyone would have any opposition to you showing off your two $12,000 freezers while eating ice cream that costs like $1 million a pint or however much it was. Well, there are people in line for food a la the Great Depression. And you'll wonder why people have an issue with that.
She and we discussed this a couple days ago, but she is also making sure that if you get the $1,200 payment, that you don't go over the amount you're supposed to get, because if you get $1,200 plus $600 and you're still unemployed, you can't do that. You can't double dip. They called it double dipping.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. Like, Lucy's pissed about that.
I'm pissed.
She is
too,
having
Lucy.
None of it.
We love double dipping, right? I mean, the poor people they're just getting rich right now. With unemployment at like 14.7 nationally, everybody's just enriching themselves. So,
and by the way, it's not a handout, quote unquote, when you can't work because of a pandemic.
Right.
I mean, this is what a federal government is for. That in situation, well, there's a lot of things that they're for, but one of the things that government is for is that in a situation like this, you look out for the people. If you're making it out like you're doing us some favor, you're not. You're just doing your job. Just like Andrew Cuomo, when he speaks in front of the camera, and Gavin Newsom, they speak in front of the camera like they've listened to a scientist once in the past 30 years, and everyone wets themselves and goes, oh, they should be president. It's like, no, they're barely adequately being presentable at their job. When you look beneath the surface, you find out, well, actually, Cuomo cut Medicaid, which really hurt New York in spite of all this. He also has been screwing over the homeless for years, which God knows during a pandemic did not do anything good. Gavin Newsom has neglected hospitals right in Los Angeles, didn't give Riverside the equipment they needed, gave about 24 fracking permits all across the state of California, all while he was posing in front of the camera going, look at all the ventilators I'm sending throughout the country.
2024.
Yeah, let's recruit him for president. He has nice hair. I mean, it's just,
he's Nancy Pelosi's nephew. Like, that's another thing.
I found out about that recently. You know what's funny? Somebody pointed that to me recently, and it gave me a little bit of solace because I found out another distant cousin of his is Joanna Newsom, who I don't know if you know who that is. She's a musician. I personally am a fan of her music. And I know nothing about her personal politics, nor, I mean, they're like second cousins twice removed. So it's not like that has much to do with her at all. But I was like, oh, wow, she's related to Gavin. And then you find out, oh, he also has relations to Pelosi.
Yeah, I mean, if you look really deep, it's kind of crazy, but a lot of these powerful people are related. And then you wonder, like, that how they came into power. Matt Stoller, who is kind of hit or miss for me. Like, I don't agree with a lot of his takes. And then sometimes when it comes to economics, he says some things that are worth listening to. But he tweeted about the HEROES Act cuts pensions for essential workers. And there's a document here in a letter that we have where they a group of these unions and these essential workers are writing a letter to Nancy Pelosi, to Chuck Schumer, and the Senate and the House. And they say, our organizations representing tens of millions of workers and retirees strongly support passage of this year's critical legislation to assist severely underfunded multi-employer pension plans to ensure that retirees and their families receive their hard-earned pensions. More than 10 million Americans depend on multi-employer pensions, plus a secure in retirement for themselves and their families. Throughout their careers, these workers gave up a portion of wages to earn their pension benefits. In retirement, they deserve to receive the pensions earned and retire with dignity. The Emergency Pension Relief Act, proposed advanced by senators, meets this standard by using special partisan program funded by the federal government to support troubled plans and their participants. We urge that this proposal be passed as soon as possible. At the same time, we strongly oppose the composite plan legislation, including GROW Act, hurts workers, retirees, employers, and the pension benefit guarantee population, and should not become law. Composite legislation is deeply flawed because it allows multi-employer trustees to refinance their obligation to workers and retirees in their existing plan over 25 years instead of 15 years, so they can divert the money to start a new composite plan. And they basically just talked about if Congress already passed the GROW Act and it was a law now, workers in a previously healthy multi-employer pension plan that converted into a composite plan would face draconian benefit cuts. They would be cut 70%, and the invested benefits they already earned would be cut 25%. And at the same time, the vested benefits of workers in the existing plan would be cut by 21%. To avoid benefit cuts, employers would be required to increase contributions by approximately 82% above what they had already committed to. So they continue to talk about like all the things that it does, and this part of that is inside the HEROES Act. And this is from the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, Machinists and Aerospace Workers, the Longshore Warehouse Unit, Musicians for Pension Security, SEIU, the United Steelworkers, United Food and Commercial Workers of International Union, and a few others. So it's really interesting because most of us wouldn't really know about this. We don't really, I mean, it's like hundreds of pages of legislation, and these people half the time that's what happened last time with the CARES Act. They got it the night before. Most people didn't read it, and they just ended up blindly supporting it. And what we're seeing is a few of our progressive leaders, so to speak, are not supporting this legislation. And some of those people are Ro Khanna, Jayapal, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, among others. What do you think what do you think we should do? Like, is it worth it opposing a bill when people need money? Because this should have happened like a long time ago. Like, if you were going to oppose anything, we should have done it months ago.
You should have done it initially so that it set a better standard out the gate. I mean, it's one of those things like when you look at, because they're saying, well, this is really going to struggle in the Senate, which is code for like Republicans are going to gut this thing. And what are they going to gut? Well, they're going to gut the parts that are better about it. Like they're going to gut the parts about, like hazard pay and stuff like that. Those are the parts they're going to go after. We all know this. The parts that help out the lobbyists and help out the bank, that's all going to be fine. They're not going to touch that. They're going to touch the parts that help regular people. So, it's just one of those things when you start from, it's just like basic rules of compromise that, we see it time and time again, where instead of starting with the sky, we're saying we are going to, completely suspend rent, and we're going to cancel rent, and we're going to cancel mortgages, and we're going to give direct relief to people in the form of an emergency UBI, and we're going to do this. Yep. Instead of starting there, they already start from this significant point of compromise because they don't want to do anything to disrupt their donors. So then it just gets further gutted to the point where it's like, this is just a straight up banana republic. I almost wish we just had an ATM that Wall Street could just go use, because then at least then it would be less subtle and more people would see it. And they'd be like, wow, they just replaced our government with an ATM for Wall Street, and we're hoping that we get a couple crumbs. That's essentially what's going on, just with a more smiley face attached to it. So
it would be more honest, I guess, in that way.
Right?
100%. Zephyr Teachout has been one of the people that I've really liked throughout this whole thing. She's been, she's been really honest. She's criticized Cuomo. She's been on it as far as a progressive. And she reiterated the fact that Jayapal, along with Ro Khanna, is waging a significant fight for people's security, paycheck guarantee, healthcare, and against lobbyist bailouts. Of course, one of the parts in this whole thing is a huge bailout for lobbyists. Mm-hmm. It's one of those key moments for the Democratic Party. Do not rush through a bad bill. oppose the HEROES Act. So here she's calling for the opposition of the HEROES Act. And further, the Sunrise Movement just updated Jayapal, Rokana, AOC, Mark Pocan, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, Katie Porter, and Chuy Garcia did not vote for the HEROES Act today. So it's interesting. Like I said, I agree with you. This should have set the standard a long time ago. To me, a lot of it feels like grandstanding, and I haven't actually been able to see any sort of like speech besides Nancy Pelosi's. And I just think at this point it's like, okay, yeah, like we want something better. But really, what are we doing to hold Nancy Pelosi accountable? And it just sort of brings me to our next topic, which is our movement, the progressive movement, co-opted? And I kind of want to hear your point of view on how AOC is now appointed to take a leadership position in this unity task force with Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, specifically regarding the environment.
Yeah, well, and you forgot about I think John Kerry is there too. Which when I think of the greatest existential threat to our future as a species, I think somebody better give John Kerry a call. We got to get the big guns for this, and there's no one more suited to the task than John Kerry. He's got this. I got the utmost confidence. In 2024, hold me to this. I hope we get to revisit this 4 years from now in 2024, when presumably there will be a presidential election. There is going to be a moment probably on CNN, maybe on MSNBC, where they're going to bring John Kerry out because he's someone we all want to hear from. And they're going to say, John, what do we need in a 2024 presidential nominee? The Democrats are thinking of nominating this person with a murder allegation, whoever it may be. They might not. What do you think? What do we need from a 2024 nominee? And Joe Biden is just going to belch into the microphone and fart. And that's going to be the end of the segment. Hold me to it. That's my prediction. That's happening in 2024. That segment will happen. I have a hard time getting excited about these quote unquote task forces, because to me, it's like, it'd be like the equivalent of you're betting on a football team to win a game, but you're basing it off of your fantasy team. It's not actual policy. It's not actual. So, I mean, I guess to make a long answer longer, as far as like, is our movement co-opted? I'm going to say no, but I'm only going to say no because I think we got to start thinking far beyond electoral politics at this point. And, the best thing we can do right now is have a true general strike, which general strike has also received my official 2020 endorsement.
Yes.
So the optimistic side of me is saying, well, that's where the movement is at. So I'm saying, like, no, that's not co-opted, because these politicians, they're not really part of that.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% agree with you in the sense that I think the reason I use the word co-opted is in reference to like the Bernie Sanders progressive movement, which did actually get entirely co-opted by people like Jeff Weber, Chuck Rocha, these people from the inside. And then now there is this very weak, hard to watch capitulation going on where you have people like AOC with John Kerry and I think Eric Holden, if I'm not mistaken on that. And you have people like Simone Sanders. What are they working towards? They're not working. We're not going to get unity out of Joe Biden. That's the thing. We're not going to get anything because we've given them already. We have already told them, we're going to vote for you no matter what you do, no matter who you sexually assault, no matter, like, it doesn't matter. You got our vote. So that unity task force then becomes how much more are progressives going to give to the establishment, to the Democratic establishment. There's nothing that we're really going to get. They completely refuse to put in anybody that would offer genuine opposition. Nina Turner's of the world, gone. They're not at all involved. Then the delegate situation, which I'm just going to briefly mention, is that the delegates that were selected were handpicked as people that were non-disruptive and were very pro Biden. Like, we're willing to vote blue no matter who, in the vast majority. And so when those delegates go, and you need the delegates to get as much as you can at the convention, what are they going to get when everybody else has already capitulated? So in that sense, to me, the movement is co-opted, but I 100% agree with you in the sense of the general strike, that bigger movement that is beyond Sanders, that we've been waiting for, that we've been, too many people kind of just put on him and said, oh, he's got to be the one to lead. That's the movement that we have to build with outside parties, with outside the electorate, right? Like, demanding, like the yellow vested in France, like having a list of demands of the things we need: Medicare for all, rent cancellation, etc. Whatever those issues that we would agree on, that's where we need to go. And I'm seeing it's kind of start, but we really need to jump on it, because there are so many things that we have accomplished in this country by going outside of the electorate and taking to the streets that people,
pretty
I think,
much
forgot.
everything worth noting. I mean, really,
yeah.
and you know, I'll use this just as a for instance, and you know, this is something both of us experienced. We, you know, we're both residents of California, and you know, we had the midterms here. When I think about the midterms in California, there wasn't any candidate I was excited about. I mean, there were some candidates that I liked, but I wasn't able to vote for them. I'm talking about as far as who I could vote for, because I didn't live in their district or whatever else. So I was rooting for them, but I could not cast a vote for them because I didn't live in their district. So there wasn't anything that I could, you know, check a box for that I was excited about candidate wise. There were some things I was really excited about, you know, over on the policy side. I was real excited about the potential of rent control. I was real excited about a public bank. Lucy agrees. She loves public banks. She likes to crawl all over those public banks. But like, that was what I was real excited about. And those, which, yeah, both of those did fail on the ballot, but those movements are not extinguished. And in particular, the public bank, which, by the way, that started as a movement in LA and continues as one. And that's why we got it on the ballot. Well, you know, since that happened, there's that piece of legislation that went forward in California where we're going to be able to start construction on about 10 public banks throughout the state. So while it didn't succeed on the ballot the first time around, that movement is still alive and well. And I would say it's been very effective. So, you know, that's kind of where we got to put stake in the future. Because, I mean, one thing that I personally have really learned through the circus that has been the 2020 primary, you know, when a candidate does something you don't like, be it drop out when you don't want them to drop out, be it people associated with that campaign starting a super PAC that you wish never would have happened, be it making an endorsement you don't like, whatever it may be, there's nothing you can do. You have no recourse. And all those hours you put in, and that just goes away, really. But when you're hammering down a cause, well, no one candidate or entity can really take that away from you. That's where you actually have some power. That's where, and that's where, you know, if we want the type of change we need, that's the only place it's going to come from. Not just like, well, we have to start focusing. Like, no, that's our only option, especially since the federal government is failing us so hard on every level.
Well, and also the fact that our elections are a mess. I mean, we don't have like that. Like, as much as I'm gonna vote third party, it's like we don't have a fair system to give those third parties a fair shake, so they can actually compete with the other two. And it's just a reality. And in order to fix that, we don't necessarily have to always go through the electorate first. We can demand that. And I think that's what's missing.
We can demand something like ranked choice voting gets on a ballot.
And that's what's missing in America. That's what we had a few years ago when people stood up against, you know, with the anti-war movement against the war in Vietnam. I mean, if you look at those documentaries, at those older videos, at those photos, people were in the streets in droves for these movements, and we've lost that. We have literally just started relying on figureheads and politicians, and you know, we've seen it with the squad. they have pretty much said they're going to fall in line for the most part with what Nancy Pelosi does. And it's you know, it's difficult to judge in the sense if you want to look into electoral politics, because it's like, well, you have to keep your position. You're not going to get anything if you don't work with them. Well, at the same time, on the activist ground level, on the outside aspect, you're like, but if you continuously capitulate, what's the point of getting you in there as a progressive if you're not fighting? So this is why, to me, the whole Dem Enter thing is kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll vote for down ballot progressives even if they're Democrats, but it's like, what, like, we really aren't getting any sort of accomplishment within the party because the party has so much power. It pretty much changes you don't change the party.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're seeing, and I think that kind of goes to, like, you know, we got to realize where our lane is at. And it's like, yeah, we don't face the decisions that someone inside the electoral machine faces.
Yeah.
So what that means is that, you know, we have to kind of be the trendsetter. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's been completely, I wouldn't say we've lost it completely, because there are some, like, you know, sprouts out there of reasons to be optimistic. I mean, stuff like what the People's City Council is doing right here in Los Angeles. You know, more national movements like the Sunrise Movement, like you know, Extinction Rebellion, and just other movements like that. I mean, I think stuff like that is still happening, and I wouldn't want to discount anything like that. But yeah, I think we still need a bigger shift away from, oh, you know, if we just get a couple progressives in the Democratic Party, we're going to be fine. Like, no, it's going to take so much more than that. I think it's going to take a new party. I mean, I think that, you know, trying to work within, even at the electoral level, working within the Democratic Party, it's just, you know, that's a graveyard for actual progressive change, and we need to build a viable new option. Can I ask you, just on a side, are you leaning LaRiva, or are you leaning Green, or are you still undecided?
I'm still undecided. The Green
I am
Party,
too.
the Green Party has a lot of issues right now.
Sure.
Jesse Ventura would have probably propelled me to vote Green. LaRiva kind of falls in line more so to what I believe, more than Howie Hawkins. You know, I'm gonna have to, like, really look into it and then decide, but I'm definitely obviously going third party. We have that, you know, we do it in California and it's not a big deal for us here, but for a lot of people in other swing states, they feel compelled to have to vote for Joe Biden, and I just still feel like, don't. Like, I get it, but at the same time, it's like something's got to give at some point. You know, like, if I guess it's not gonna really matter, I guess, in your state, but at the same time, it's like, I think symbolically there's still a lot we could do, and also in terms of getting the 5%.
Well, that's the thing. Party. I mean, that is a lot, and that's why, like, I personally am still, I'm with you. I'm undecided too. I was wondering if maybe you were decided, but but I'm undecided too, because I like a lot of what LaRiva has to say. But then the other side of it too is from, like, I guess, like, from a just strategy standpoint. I'm kind of thinking, it's like, well, if the Green Party gets to 5%, that is a big thing, and that is an effective way to use my vote. Whereas, you know, the Socialist Party isn't. I mean, I think they're only in like 8 states or something like that. So that's just not as likely as the Green Party getting to that 5%. So it's like, well, I could help the Greens get to 5%. So yeah, I'm definitely going third party too, but I am undecided for a slew of reasons.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Dan Campbell, thank you for the super chat contribution. He says there are very few effective strategies that won't be squashed, but ranked choice voting is one of those few policies that could possibly be leveraged to produce change, in spite of the opposition to change. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people support ranked choice voting across the board. I don't think it's, like, that politically polarizing.
Well, the people who don't like it are the people who like the two-party duopoly. I mean, you look at what's happened in Maine, which I actually had Lisa Savage, who's running for the Senate in Maine, on my show yesterday.
Mhm.
And she was saying how, look, the long and short of it, the voters are loving it, but the Republican and Democratic establishment in Maine, they've been trying to fight it tooth and nail because that really threatens their graving train. When you can't just kind of take that donor money, and because you're taking that donor money, support shit policies that doesn't really help people, but you're able to say, well, look at those neo-fascists over there, they're even worse. When that dichotomy is broken up, which ranked choice voting does, because then people can just vote for the candidate they feel is the best.
Yep.
You're not going to like that. I mean, that's why, hey, here in California, Gavin Newsom with slick back hair and all told us that, hey, ranked choice voting, it sounds nice, you guys, but it's so complicated. And why would we want to complicate our super awesome system, our system with gerrymandering and the electoral college and voting machines that have every red flag associated with them? So many red flags they could have been used to map out a marathon. Yet we use them anyway because Alex Padilla and Joe Biden are buddies. Why would we want to complicate this already super simple system? And by the way, ranked choice voting is not complicated. You rank your freaking choices. They go down and they scratch the lowest out, and then they go first to second until someone has the plurality to win. It ain't that freaking complicated.
Yeah, and it encourages the thinking that you don't have just two choices, and it's a scary thought for a lot of those people that just can't see beyond that one-dimensional sphere. Mberg 33. Massachusetts residents can get ranked choice voting on the ballot online. Constituents should visit voterchoice2020.org. Yeah, I think this is becoming a bigger deal than it was before. It's becoming more less taboo. It's becoming something that people are talking about. One thing, speaking of voting, Ron, I want to mention, I want your opinion on, because I was really upset about this, right? Bernie Sanders failed to show up to a very important vote regarding the surveillance of people's browser history, and it was an amendment to stop that, and it lost by one vote. He was one of 4 senators who were for it. Who would have voted in favor to stop it, that didn't show up. Total of 10 people voted against it, and it needed 60 to pass. It got 59, and
10 Democrats voted, right? 10
Democrats, I believe.
Yeah, that voted. Yeah, because it Manchin and good old Feinstein.
Yeah. Well,
and I mean, we were talking about this a little off mic. I'm still waiting for an explanation of why he wasn't there. I mean, you owe people an explanation, because that's not a good vote to miss. And hey, look, it was a long time ago at this point, but at one point in time, Bernie won mayor by 10 votes.
Yeah.
So I feel like he, of all people, should know that every vote counts, especially when you're in the Senate. So, yeah, I was extremely disappointed by that. And furthermore, I do have a theory, too. I actually have a conspiracy theory that I think is bulletproof and nobody can disprove. I think the whole reason they went through with that, why they were like, okay, what's going to help out during a pandemic? I know we get access to everybody's browsing history if we want it, and we don't need a warrant. I think it was all a conspiracy to try to get Ted Cruz into weirder porn. I think they all get a kick when Ted Cruz looks up weird porn and his wife gets mad. So they're like, well, now we can just look at, it's a pandemic. People are looking at who knows what on the internet. We're going to get Ted into some weirder porn, which I just cannot endorse that at the expense of people's civil liberties. I just can't go there.
I don't know. That's a tough one for me. I really want to know what Ted Cruz is looking at, because if we find weird things, I know there's blueberry porn and there's weird shit out there, Ron.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
I have a feeling Ted Cruz has probably dug his hands somewhere or other over there, but yeah, I agree with you. I was really disappointed. I still haven't seen any sort of explanation from him. He is old. He is one of the people that would be at risk to getting sick. However, he has showed up for less important votes. Also, what he was doing is live streaming, talking about unity with Biden and all this other, which is completely unimportant. comparison. And somebody had to say something about it. A couple people did. Tulsi Gabbard said she was asked by somebody, did you vote on that bill that allows the FBI to search my browser history? And she said, no. That vote was in the Senate. The House hasn't yet voted on that. It's terrible that it failed by one vote. The 4 senators who skipped out on that vote could have made the difference. So that's interesting, like that she said that. But also, Tim Kadova.
Didn't she co-sponsor that like HR 666?
Yeah.
Which weird number, by the way.
Yeah.
Very weird choice.
As a Catholic.
4 6s. What?
As somebody who grew up Catholic, yes, definitely.
Right? It's like that's
yeah.
And I've read it, and there's some very, very alarming parts in there. I mean, this is just another trend. This is another cycle, and this gets back to the theme that we were just talking about. Because look, these politicians aren't going to save you when it comes to this stuff, but who is looking out for you are these digital rights organizations like Fight for the Future, organizations like the ACLU, Free Press. I mean, these are the types of organizations that have been fighting these things on the front line for years and have been fighting the effects of the Patriot Act on the front line for years. And when they push out this Orwellian stuff, which, it's so, this is just another, for instance, of, well, what are we going to sacrifice, quote unquote, in the name of our safety? And it's like, well, this is not helping. Getting someone's browser history without a warrant is not helping during a pandemic. These Orwellian style surveillance overreaches are not helping during a pandemic. Expanding facial recognition is not helping during a pandemic. There's no evidence to indicate that it helps in the slightest. Shahid Buttar is someone who can really talk about these issues incredibly extensively. You hear that guy talk about this stuff, and it's very very enlightening. He can speak to it way better than I can. But this is not helping. This is just an overreach, and we're going to be fighting more of it now.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I just feel like every time there's a disaster of any kind, they try to like sneak in legislation that is basically the spying on American people. Like, that's all it is. And they've been, getting rid of habeas corpus for a while. Like, they've been slowly pushing that down. And now we have the excuse of the coronavirus. I'm not saying that the coronavirus isn't a threat. It obviously is.
Right.
But it is like you said, there's no safety. They always use the words safety and precaution and security. And the intelligence, these intelligence agencies already could come to this house right now and literally shut everything down, and I'd have zero way to stop it. And you're seeing this on Twitter, on Facebook. I don't know if you've noticed, but they're shutting people down left and right. They are looking, if you post like a curse word against like some sort of politician, they're like, are you sure you want to send that?
I heard about that. It hasn't happened to me personally yet, but I've seen it. I've seen the screenshots where it's like, yeah, you can't curse on Twitter now. Or I guess depending on who it's directed at, you can't curse on Twitter. Because I have cursed on Twitter since that has happened, but I guess none of mine were, maybe they were just general tweets or something, because I haven't gotten one of those warnings of Twitter being my conscience for me. Which the only conscience I report to is whiskey. All right. So back off, Twitter.
It's okay. Everybody's reporting to alcohol for their conscience right now. It's okay. Ruben said, what are your thoughts on star voting? Look it up. It's a great voting method. Just really new. I've never heard of that. I will.
I'm not familiar with it. I'd have to look into it.
Yeah. Definitely will.
I think I've heard someone mention it before, but again, I just know the term. I don't know what it is exactly. So
I have no idea what it is. We'll look it up.
Send a document to Johnny Sue. He'll read up on it for us.
We have what, you want to say something real quick?
Yeah. I pulled it up real quick.
He looked it up.
It says star voting is an electoral system for single seat elections. The name, maybe this is it. Oh, okay. It looks like the two highest scoring candidates are finalists. The finalists scored higher by more. voters win. So basically, on the screen, we're seeing that it has all the names, all the candidates down, and it has a 0 to 5 rating that you give each candidate.
Oh, okay. So it's similar.
So it's another type of voting method.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah, I know
That's interesting.
There's a website that oh man, I'm drawing a blank to, it's like election science maybe or something like that, but they break down all the different alternative voting methods that are out there, like different things we could do.
Yeah.
Ranked choice voting is one of them. I'm open to learning about more of them. But I mean, right now, ranked choice voting has gained the most momentum, and I'm definitely for it. But I'm certainly interested in learning what else is out there too, because I think that a lot of these methods are way better than what we got now. So I'm all about looking into them. But
yeah, Kadeem Midget said, "Hey, fan of both of you. You keep up the good work. Check out Shania Chaudhuri's socialist, veteran, and pro-ranked choice voting, Medicare for all, etc. He is up against Gregory Meeks for New York's 5th district." Interesting. Okay. I feel like I've heard of this person. Yeah, there's still a lot of people I definitely want to interview. People that I think deserve our attention as progressives for down ballot voting. Ron, I just want to point out this tweet to you. I thought it was funny. With the regard to the Any Blue Will Do, this Kay Rosef on Twitter posted, "I'm voting for Joffrey for the Iron Throne because he's better than Ramsay. If you don't vote for Joffrey, you're voting for that horrible monster Ramsay. At least all Joffrey did was kill all the bastard babies in King's Landing and murder some prostitutes for fun." And this is that is a great tweet. And that's kind of like, did you watch Game of Thrones or no?
Oh, I did.
Okay.
I did.
So basically, that's where we're at, America.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Well, here's the thing. I too was faced with the same election. And what I did was I wrote in the Hound. And by writing in the Hound, Joffrey voters shamed me. And they said, well, any vote that's not for Joffrey is a vote for Ramsay. So you voted for Ramsay. And I was like, no, I wrote it in the Hound. And then the Ramsay fans that were like, well, you live in a Joffrey state. So basically, if you didn't vote for Ramsay, you voted for Joffrey. And it turns out by voting for neither one of them, I voted for both of them. So if that person feels any better, by writing in the Hound, I voted for both Joffrey and Ramsay. So eggs on my face. So I just feel bad.
In this election, vote for the Hound. Write in the Hound. Or you know who I would write in? Probably Arya. I'd probably write in Arya.
Arya doesn't want the gig, and I respect that about her. I think Arya's going to start her own civilization in Westeros, and I'm just going to move there.
Same.
She was my favorite character in the show, though.
Who? The Hound?
Arya.
Oh, Arya. Yeah, I really liked her. Definitely. I thought she was cool. I feel like Daenerys was like a progressive that let us down. I don't know. Like, it would be like a progressive that turns and just kills everybody.
Well, I used to have a joke in my act breaking down, I had to cut it because it's just not topical anymore. But
yeah.
And it was before the end. And I broke it down where I said that the wildlings were the libertarians and the, what's their names? The guy without the hand and his sister, Cersei, the Lannisters.
Oh, the Lannisters.
So it's been a minute.
Yeah.
But the Lannisters and their ilk, they were the Republicans.
Yep.
And that the Tyrells were the Democrats because they're just kind of weak and they still have a lot of money and power. And that everyone else, like Daenerys and Jon Snow, like they were all the progressives.
Yeah.
And so like the big lesson is if like the progressives and the wildlings and everyone else unites, they could really make some change there. And then of course the show ended the way it did. And so did that chunk of material.
So has the like quote unquote Bernie campaign, like just like it's just kind of like it. Like I was like, damn, this sucks. Game of Thrones, like I was so excited this was gonna be great. And then I was like, damn. And now it's like our life is like that. So I need to find something else to watch. But Joe Biden is one of those things I enjoy watching for comedy. And
it's a solid series.
Yeah,
they repeat some of the jokes, but it's an okay series.
He's got a podcast. I don't know if you're a fan, but I'm a total fan.
Well, see, I heard he's one of Obama's Netflix projects.
Oh.
There's just the Joe Biden series.
Oh, Biden is what it should be called.
Oh, Biden. Come on,
Oh,
Mac.
So we're going to play a little video of, it's really quick, a minute video of him. Yeah, let's just listen to what he says. Please. Yeah. Cuz he tells you to to vote for him. Or well, he doesn't tell you to vote for him, but we'll listen to it.
Not a moment for excuses or deflections or blame game. We're in the middle of a pandemic that had cost us more than 85,000 jobs as of today, lives of millions of people, millions of jobs. And we're in a position where we just got new unemployment insurance this morning numbers, 36.5 million claims since this crisis began, and almost 3 million new claims in the last week. The unemployment rate is nearing 15%, the highest it's been since the Great Depression. But I need not tell you all that. Of course, it's the least well off for being hit the hardest. 40% of the households making $40,000 or less experienced a job loss. This is not a moment for excuses or deflections or blame game.
Well, I gotta be honest, Ron. This is one of the more cognizant interviews I've seen him do.
I'm inspired. I mean, I'm totally inspired. He's just listing off statistics and then repeating that this is no time for excuses or this is no time
blame
for
games.
How about this is no time for rambling? What's your freaking point, Joe Biden?
And he mentioned the word blame game. So that was like, hey, no, it's not the time right now to hold any sort of accountability. He repeated himself regards to the millions of job loss. So that was only one point where he repeated himself, because there are other instances where it gets worse for Joe. The Daily Caller posted this tweet. Now, the Daily Caller is a Daily Caller, but this is the part where he literally said, if they believe Tara Reade, they probably shouldn't vote for me. I wouldn't vote for me if I believed Tara Reade. Let's listen to that.
What would you say to them about their vote?
Well, I think they should vote their heart. And if they believe Tara Reade, they probably shouldn't vote for me. I wouldn't vote for me if I believed Tara Reade.
What would you say?
I mean, I wouldn't vote for Joe either. So if he's telling me to not vote for him, I'm going to listen to him, right?
I tweeted this out, because I didn't, this is my first time actually hearing it, but I saw the transcript. So I already knew about it. And I tweeted about it and I was like, this is at least the second time so far. And by the way, technically the primary itself isn't even over yet. We're not even into the general election, technically. Yep. And already, at least 2 times, Joe Biden has said to me, not a Republican, I'm about as far from a Republican as you can get. And Joe Biden has said to me, indirectly, people who think like me, don't vote for me. It's just unbelievable. I mean, he said, hey, do you oppose fracking? Don't vote for me. Are you critical of some of the stuff Obama did? Don't vote for me. Do you believe Tara Reade? Don't vote for me. It's like, okay,
Joe,
dude.
Thank you. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm just going to listen to him. If he's really that guy worthy of listening to, I'm going to listen to the guy. I'm not going to vote for him. Thank you, Joe, for really doing the job of Donald Trump, because he's just telling people left and right not to vote for him. And you mentioned something funny, because you said, this is technically, the primary isn't technically over yet. And you're right. And this woman that was interviewed, she kind of let it slip that it isn't. And she's a DNC communications director. And she confirmed on, I think it was yesterday, that we're not done, that Joe Biden isn't necessarily the nominee. Let's hear what she said.
I mean, there's a real possibility if the convention does not happen, or it happens in a...
Can you hear it, or?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I mean, there's a real possibility if the convention does not happen, or it happens in a virtual sense. Is that correct as of today?
Well, first of all, our convention has to happen because we are not officially nominating Joe Biden in order to take Donald Trump. So our convention is happening. There is business that has to happen.
I mean, there's a real possibility.
Okay, so she said we are not officially nominating Joe Biden. Ron, what do you think? Do you think they're really not going to nominate Joe Biden? Do you think he's going to be replaced?
I think there is a slim chance, yes, but I'm not counting on it. I mean, I think that was just kind of her, just kind of whatever. I mean, maybe she revealed something bigger. I think that if they don't, that if Joe Biden's not the nominee, they're going to try to just put someone else up in there. They're going to try to just, anoint somebody, because I think what's going to happen is the convention is likely not going to occur the way it would have had this pandemic not occurred. Like, I don't think it's going to be a 4-day event with however many thousands of people in August. I see it maybe being maybe it's going to be a 1-day event. Maybe it's going to be it's projected onto a screen or something. Like, I don't know exactly how it's going to unfold, but I don't see it being the original event that they planned.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to be able to just do a lot behind closed doors. I have a feeling it's going to be Biden. I mean, I'd be surprised if at this point. But it's certainly not impossible. I mean, it's not impossible that it's not impossible that he himself could step down. I'm not counting on it, but it's not impossible. But I would be very concerned. I mean, if this is just in the DNC's hands, what they would do. I mean, what they might use at their disposal to try to say, oh, given this extreme circumstance, we're just going to put this person up there, or who knows? Because, I mean, they sure as hell ain't going to they're not going to give it to Bernie.
No, I think that's wishful thinking. I mean, I think that's a little naive at this point. But I do think, Darren Levy said it. I think the plan all along is to replace Biden with Hillary. That's interesting. I mean, I think they would be so stupid to do that. I think a lot of people are thinking that right now. For me, I think it's more of who Biden's VP is going to be. That's what I think is more of the indicator as to who would replace Biden eventually is who his VP is. And right now we're looking at Warren, Harris, Klobuchar, and possibly Hillary. The betting odds for her had gone up.
See, my prediction, unless there's something I haven't seen, my prediction is still Abrams.
Abrams, really?
I think, that's my guess. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but yeah, my prediction is still Stacey Abrams, unless there's something I'm missing.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know if they would think that she would be capable of being president, that she would have I could see the identity politics aspect of it with her, but as far as her political background, a senator, right, would be much more, or a secretary of state would be much more of likely. I don't know. I honestly, it could be anything. Nothing would surprise me at this point, but I do think that they're not really looking for him to be in charge for that long. His mental decline is too obvious, I think.
Well, I think what they're trying to do, strictly from a branding standpoint, and it's very deceptive, is they're really, and this is why I predict Abrams, is I think they're trying to make it out like this new quote unquote class of establishment candidates. Well, they're the future and they're the progressives. And Joe Biden, I mean, I think there was an article that used this exact verbiage. Joe Biden is a bridge to them.
Yeah.
And what is he a bridge to? Well, he's the bridge to, and they're already trying to sell the Joe Kennedys of the establishment party as progressives, which they're not. Right. They're just younger. They're just younger in years. That means nothing. So that's why I think they're going to try to sell this idea that Stacey Abrams is some progressive, that she's the future, and that's who's going to be the VP. And I think that's the branding attempt that the establishment Democrats are going to take. And unfortunately, I mean, it's been effective. I mean, if you talk
Yeah.
to some general people who don't follow this stuff as closely, maybe because they care about their mental health, they might think, oh yeah, Joe Kennedy, he's pretty progressive, isn't? No, he's not.
No. He was like saying we need. It was a bullshit tweet. I think I saw you.
Oh yeah. Nobody should face medical bankruptcy without a lawyer.
Without a lawyer. Okay. And just, speaking of that, just to start wrapping it up here, the the city of Los Angeles has extended our stay-at-home orders. Now, personally, for me, I think it's important that we flatten the curve, that we are careful, that we don't, continue the spread of this. However, at the same time, right now, we've seen what the HEROES Act is. We've seen what the CARES Act was. We've gotten one stimulus payment of $1,200. I have lots of friends who work in the service industry, a restaurant industry, have gotten their payments, but that runs out soon. We're not necessarily getting more from the government, and this $1,200 payment may come way later. People still have to pay rents. Landlords don't care. So it's like, yes, okay, stay at home. But then don't ask us to go back to work. Don't take out the unemployment. Don't, you have to provide for people if you're going to still keep the economy semi-closed. And I think the problem has been that it depends on what industry you're in, and it depends on what state you're in. And so this is all a mess. And I just want to know how you feel about that in particular.
Well, I think it's very telling. And, we can all use our own communities, for example. And with you and I, the community is the Los Angeles area. You look at Mayor Garcetti, his Twitter feed, and it's tweet after tweet of telling people to stay home, which I do agree with that.
Right.
But the problem is that they're asking us to do our part, but they don't want to do theirs.
Right.
They don't want to do their part of helping people out in this situation, because this is no fault of our own. It's not like we're just like, hey, we're just not going to go to work anymore. No, there's a pandemic and people can't work. That's what's happening. So, never once have I seen a tweet of, hey, this is what we're going to do, to help people that are facing issues with rent. This is what we're going to do. I mean, they had that rent moratorium through the end of April. I don't even know if it's been renewed. And that's pretty much all they did. So, okay, until the end of April, your landlord can't kick you out. We saved you. You're good now. I mean, the People's City Council, their demands are just basic demands you would want in a situation like this.
Yeah.
No vacancy. Let's make sure that, homeless people have shelters over them, because it's endangering everybody, not just homeless people, but everybody in a community when people are unhoused in a pandemic like this. So we need to have no vacancy. We need to provide shelter for people. We need to, provide just complete rent forgiveness and mortgage forgiveness too. So that way it's like, okay, the landlord's not getting their rent check. Okay, well, they don't have to pay their mortgage either. So no one has to pay. It's just completely forgiven. And then when this is over, we'll just go back to paying our rents and our mortgages like we normally do. And who can just deal with it? The freaking banks, who have gotten trillions, because there's the only ones who wouldn't be getting their money in this case, and they've already gotten enough, so they're fine. And that's the problem. It's the fact that, and that's why when I see the people protesting for we'll reopen the economy, it's like, look, that's a misdirected thing, because it's not reopen the economy. It's we need to do what we need to do to flatten this curve. And we're doing our part, and the government's not doing theirs in providing for people during this time. And in other countries, they're doing so much better.
Yeah. And it's not even like they're giving people like ponies. It's literally like normal basic things that you would want. And it's interesting, we mentioned about reopening the economy. A lot of the things that have begun reopening in places like Florida, where I was just at, is like nail salons, hair salons, things like, yeah, those would be nice to have, but who is that service for? That service is a luxury service. It's not an essential need, correct? So the people who are going to go back to work on that are the working class. The people who are going to expose lose themselves are the working class. The people who will benefit from it are the classes that can afford to make those luxury purchases. So again, this is also a discussion on class. And
big time.
Oh, hugely. And yesterday there was one protest on canceling rent, and canceling rent means literally like a stop on paying rent and mortgages for that time. You don't have to pay it back. It's different than a freeze.
Right.
And people were protesting in LA, and this is by the LA Tenants Union. Now, LA Tenants Union has multiple locations. This location was near Echo Park. This is something that I think could lead potentially to strengthening ties with something like a general strike, because that would be part of one of the asks we have. And I just tweeted and I said, people are out here protesting cancel rent Los Angeles because Los Angeles has extended their stay-at-home order. They can't work if they have to stay home, but they lack income. Americans have received a one-time payment of $1,200. Some have yet to receive unemployment or any of it, to be honest. And so this is the LA Tenants Unit. And just so you guys know, guys can go to my Twitter. I will post this other places, but you have rights as a tenant. And you have 12 months to pay the rent debt you agree during the crisis. So there's a lot more information that I feel like I want to do like a special. I know we did one with Elena Pop, and she's really good if you haven't spoken to her, but just so people know their rights, because there are a lot of people that your landlord is going to come in and demand something from you, but there are certain rights we do have. So we need to start paying attention to that. This is where like I think we can do a lot as the movement, like locally. The time is ripe to do that.
Yeah, and I'll just add one thing I'll put, because I've attended some of the protests that the People's City Council have organized, and I believe the People's City Council and the tenants unions, they work together. I'm pretty certain here in the Los Angeles area. Like there's the LA Tenants Union, there's a Glendale specific one, there's a Pasadena specific one, and then they all work alongside the People's City Council. I believe they're all working together, and at those protests, we practice social distancing. Most of the protests take place in cars where you're driving around Mayor Garcetti's house, and the people who are outside are the organizers of the protests, and they're staying 6 feet apart. So these are social distancing protests and this is some of the power that we do have.
And everyone was wearing a mask when I went. Everybody was pretty much taking the precautions they need. A lot of cars were honking and protesting. That's what you heard. And Nico brought up a good point. He said, sorry, I'm against the California's 3-month stay-at-home order if it's true. The government has spent too much time telling us what we can't do and telling us how horrible people are if they don't abide by their every word, but then they give us nothing and offer zero real solutions. So again, I think the point is, it's not that people don't want to be safe. It's just that not everybody is going to be a Republican out there protesting for the economy to open either. It's more so that it's misguided, as you said, that people are just scared that they're not going to have the income to survive. So the government isn't pulling their end of the weight for this. And so that in itself makes the situation worse, because it makes people be like, no, then I don't want you to tell me what to do because you're not giving me anything. So it's kind of like this like continuous rebellion in a relationship. And it just puts us all in honestly in more danger. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think we definitely, there's a lot more to do, I think, in regards to the rent strike, but I think that's a really good movement. If anybody,
I say rent strike and general strike are completely connected. I mean, I've used both of those hashtags neck and neck, where it's just like rent strike, general strike, national strike. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I just think like there's, like what Shahid Buttar has said many times is, think globally, act locally. And there's a lot of work. There's a lot of these people. And there was a substantial amount of people there. And I honestly think that if those little movements of rent strikes were able to coalesce with a general strike, then we could see something big happening, especially with all the HEROES Act, with all the things that the government has fallen so short on. That's where we go to next. And that takes us back to our whole, the movement isn't necessarily dead, the movement isn't necessarily entirely co-opted. It's because we have to see that the movement is beyond the electorate. And I think that's where we're at. So Ron, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
really
for having
appreciate
me.
it.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, and good to see Lucy.
Thank you.
Say hi to Lucy and Caitlin, and I
will.
hope you guys stay safe, and we will take some of that bread.
You got it. You got it. Yeah, we're excited. Absolutely.
And just letting everyone know, we have a new format for the show.
Yeah.
Basically, while we're live, you can watch us live on 3 different platforms. It's YouTube, ROKFIN, and Periscope. After it's live, the live stream will only be available on our ROKFIN and Patreon. Shareable clips from the live stream will be posted on YouTube and ROKFIN.
Yep.
Just so y'all know.
Between today and tomorrow, it'll all be on YouTube and ROKFIN. So
Brilliant.
thanks, guys, for watching. Love to all of you. Stay safe. Convo out. Bye.
Peace.